All right, we continue with the Combine here in Indy. Anish Shroff, ESPN draft analyst Jordan Reid, who happens to be Charlotte native as well. So we've got a native North Carolinian here. And Jordan, I'm going to start with this because you're going to put your next mock draft out when?
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. So we'll see the big reveal. But best case scenario for the Panthers, barring not a major surprise. We don't expect Travis Hunter to fall to 8. But best case scenario, and something that's realistic, what makes the most sense for Carolina at 8?
Well, best case scenario, I would say Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan, if he's there. I think you turn the card in. You don't make us wait all the way down or run the clock all the way down to make the selection. If he's there, you turn the card in within a minute or two after you call his family and all that stuff. So Mason Graham would be best case scenario, but I just think the Panthers need to find a way to add some type of defensive presence alongside Derek Brown in the middle along that defensive line, just because they were just so bad up front with generating pressure. So whether it's a Mason Graham or any of the Georgia duo and Jalon Walker or Mykel Williams, I think that would be best case scenario.
I want to hit you on some prospects now. Let's start with Graham. You mentioned him. What is it when you look at his film that jumps out?
Just a disruptive presence. And he's gotten better every single year that he's been at Michigan. And if you go through all of their big-time games and the big-time opponents, he was at his best. And that's what you want to see whenever a guy's projected to be a top 10 pick. I should be able to go through the film, having never seen him before, and pointing out, oh, who's that number 55 that's making all those plays on the defensive side? And Mason Graham was able to do that. So, I mean, he's a terror, and you can line him up anywhere. You don't have to just stick him in the middle. You can stand him up on the edge sometimes. He's that type of athletic presence. So I love Mason Graham. He's my third-ranked player and one of the 3 blue-chip prospects along with Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter in this year's draft class.
Abdul Carter is one I want to hit. The low-hanging fruit is, it's Micah Parsons 2.0, but the more I talk to folks, it seems that that's not that crazy of a comp.
Not at all, and it's not quote-unquote lazy just because he wore 11 and he went to Penn State. They're very similar to each other, and you have to remember last year was his first year ever playing defensive end, which is crazy to think just because of how well he played, and it was the 4th game of the season against Illinois where things really clicked for him. That was what I like to call his aha moment of where, oh, yeah, I can use my hands and just race past guys just because I'm more athletic than them. But what he learned after that game was I can't just rely on what I like to call out-athleting people. I can put these rush plans together while still being able to out-athlete them as well. We saw in the college football playoff, even though he was banged up with the shoulder, he still was a terror off of the edge.
Jalon Walker. What do you like about him? Is he a guy that is worthy of going in the top 10?
Another native North Carolinian from Salisbury, North Carolina, so him being able to play very close to home will be a great story for him. But he's another player that reminds me of who used to play for the Panthers and Frankie Louvu.
Wow.
They have a very similar skill set of where they're just a jack of all trades.
Disruptive.
You just line them up anywhere, keep them forward, and just say, hey, man, just terrorize the offense. That's what he's capable of doing. One of the few players in this year's draft class that you can line at off-ball linebacker but also rush him off of the edge.
You mentioned Mykel Williams, too, another Georgia guy. What do you like about his game?
So I saw Mykel up close. I was there for the Clemson game, and he's one of those players when you see him up close, you're like, this dude was built in a lab. Those creative players that we used to create on Madden during our childhood, that's exactly what he looks like. He's every bit of 6'5", 270 pounds. He's probably going to have close to 36-inch arms. And, he's a little bit underdeveloped as a pass rusher right now, but he is as pro-ready as you can get as a run defender. So the player that he reminds me of is Danielle Hunter when he was coming out of LSU, and it's going to take a little bit of time for him or for the production to match the traits that he has. But if you have some patience, I think he can be a really good player.
Yeah, we saw Hunter in his last season with the Vikings where all seemed to come together and really put together that strong year, then got that big bag from the Houston Texans. Another Georgia Bulldog and another position of need for the Panthers. And I know safety is undervalued, devalued by a lot of NFL teams, but Malaki Starks.
Yeah, he was the nucleus of that defense the past 2 years, in my honest opinion. And, he didn't have as good of a year as he had as a sophomore production-wise, but Georgia was really inconsistent on the back end, and they had a bit of a youth movement just because they had some players obviously go to the NFL, but he had to cover up a lot of the warts that they had in the secondary. So he primarily was playing slot corner this past season, but if you go back and watch his 2023 film, that's when he was predominantly playing at free safety, and that's where you saw the ball skills and the range and the tackling ability of Malaki Starks really take over. So I still see him as a top 20 pick in this year's class.
Looking deeper into the draft, we keep hearing this is a deep class for the front seven, D-line, edge rushers. Who are some second, third day guys that are fits and make sense for the Panthers up front, on the edge, that you think they could target second round, third round, and into day 3 as well?
Two guys come to mind. The first one is Jack Sawyer out of
Ohio
Ohio State, and we saw what he was able to do in the college football playoff. But last year he was really productive, and if there was a definition of pro ready, he is exactly that. And physically, he's not going to look as great, especially here at the combine, as some of his counterparts. But you turn on the tape, he's generating pressure. He's really stout against the run as well. He just does so many things good, even though he doesn't have that overly great trait. You just know he's going to be a productive player that can play in rotation right away. So he definitely is one. Another is Landon Jackson out of Arkansas. That's probably going to go somewhere in the third round, if I had to guess right now. Very similar to Jack Sawyer in that he doesn't have overwhelmingly great physical traits, but he's another player that can come in and be a part of a rotation right away.
Before I leave you, who's your big sleeper in this draft?
Oh, man, you put me on the spot with that. One for me is Charles Grant. He's an offensive tackle out of William and Mary, and he's starting to get quite a bit of buzz. He's not really a sleeper anymore, but after he tests, I definitely think he has a chance to go probably somewhere in the mid to late second round.
Whose wedding are you crashing?
Oh, nobody's. I'm just dressed for the occasion.
You can, though, with that.
Yeah.
You might even be able to stand next to the groom.
Men in black. I'm feeling like Will Smith right now.
He's Jordan Reid, ESPN's NFL draft analyst. Next mock draft comes out on Tuesday. Be sure to check it out on ESPN.com.